Pascal from the Wellbeing Protocol. So why is our system so broken? Why is the gap between the rich and the poor increasing? Why are the organisations that we've put in place to support our most vulnerable, our most disadvantaged, why are they struggling to cope? It's not the people in charge, it's not the governments, it's the system. Capitalism, the system that surrounds us, is fundamentally centred around individual capital accumulation, competition and private ownership. That's what the system is. And one of the fundamental features or bugs of capitalism is that it is constantly striving for efficiency. And one of the ways that it becomes more efficient is economy of scale centralisation. It's generally more efficient to have one big company than 3 smaller companies, for example. And technology has taken that efficiency centralisation to a whole new level, never seen in human history. But the major side effect of that centralisation is that our communities are becoming decimated. This was elegantly described in the seminal book, The Third Pillar, a few years ago. Raghuram was the ex-head of the Indian Reserve Bank, ex-chief economist at the IMF. And the way he describes it is that as society has become more sophisticated and grown, we've centralised more, we're now reliant on big governments, big organisations to look after our most vulnerable. It's taken over the role that the community used to fill. But as a species, we are hardwired to live in small communities, hyperlocal groups, villages, tribes. So imagine if we could create new economic models that instead of being focused on individualism and private ownership, they were designed to support and incentivise something called localism. So localism, a focus on local communities, economies, governance or culture. It emphasises self-sufficiency, local decision-making and community-driven solutions. And in our hearts, we know that working on things that we care about as a community is good. And the reason it's good is that it builds up other forms of capital. Social capital, intellectual capital, natural, experiential, cultural. These are the sorts of capital that are actually good for our human well-being. And in small groups, we tend to be more motivated, we're more engaged, we care more. This is a wonderful quote from the first woman to win the Nobel Prize for Economics, Eleanor Ostrom. There's no reason to believe that the bureaucrats and politicians, no matter how well-meaning, are better at solving problems than the people on the spot who have the strongest incentive to get the solution right. And there's actually hard evidence that localism works. In 2018, the results of a 3-year public health experiment in Frome, southwest England, were released. They, over those 3 years, invested in localism and community building, and the results were incredible. Hospital admissions for surrounding counties rose by 29%, and in Frome they fell by 17%, an astounding 46% difference. And this caught international press. This is the Guardian and the New York Times articles that covered it. But we have a problem. If we're going to build a new economic system that truly gives power and control to the hyperlocal groups, then we can't build it on infrastructure that is centralised and controlled by big tech or big government. Because if we do, then whatever we build can ultimately be influenced, corrupted or shut down by the people who control that infrastructure. And increasingly, these are unelected tech bros on the west coast of America. So we need to build this on infrastructure that cannot be corrupted, and we need to build it in a way that gives genuine control to communities. And we now have this infrastructure. It's now mature enough. It's called Web3 or blockchain. You're probably more likely to have heard of cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin, which are the more controversial, headline-grabbing early use cases for blockchain, but it's so much more than that. Without going into details of what Web3 is, the key points are that it allows us to create new forms of programmable value. It allows us to create new, incorruptible, transparent, community-controlled governance systems. But building these new economic systems is a journey. It isn't going to happen overnight. And we believe that the first and critical step is to start to redirect a small amount of the current philanthropic and social welfare capital towards the hyperlocal, but give these hyperlocal groups genuine control of that capital and do it in a way that's replicable and therefore scalable. So let's move from the abstract and theoretical to the practical. How might we actually build some sort of new economic system? So let's first look at the three or the early stakeholders of a potential system. So first of all, community. So community is essentially a local group who care about something, so who have a strong desire to make a difference or have a common challenge. So it could literally be 12 people who want to create a community garden, or 100 tenants in a social housing complex who want to improve community health, or 150 parents associated with a school who are worried about child mental health. It really can be anything. But this group, they typically don't have charitable status, they don't have a shared bank account, they don't know about financial governance or group decision making. But we can assume they're looking for well-being and happiness in their community, they want to make their own decisions, and they want to build capital, not just material and financial, but all the other forms of capital. And they want to become more resilient. So the other stakeholder is the funder. So this is the organisation or individual who wants to use financial capital for social good. And we can assume they want efficiency, and they want some sort of certainty or proof of that efficiency. They want equitability, and they want value alignment. They want to fund things that they value. Then we have the partner. So these are typically existing organisations that sit already in between the funder and the community. Local community development organisations, charities, social enterprise. They typically want to maximise impact. They want to spend less time raising money. They want some certainty of income so they can pay staff and keep that consistency going. So we have community doing good, we have funding doing good, and then we have the partner who has two roles, one to support the community, and that's quite an important point, that with any tech solution, the actual tech is really only a part of the solution. There's so much other stuff that the partner who has the local knowledge and relationships needs to do. But they're also providing proof of good to the funder, because the funder typically doesn't want to get into the weeds of the sort of the decisions that are happening in the community. So let's explore a typical process. So let's imagine if we could give this informal community group a pot of money and we could let them decide how to spend it. But of course it's not that simple, because if you drop a briefcase of money into a community hall, it's probably not going to go so well. So we need to put some things in place. First thing is a constitution. So this is a written document created by the community that essentially says, if we get money, this is what we're going to do with it. The second thing is we need this mechanism to allow the community to democratically allocate the money. And the mechanism that we've been working on and been building over the last couple of years essentially is a workflow governance tool that allows the community to come up with ideas and flow them through to proposals and then projects that end up in a micro grant that gets given to actual specific community members. This is what the tool looks like currently. We've been running trials in 3 countries now. So we've managed to implement some really interesting voting technology, quadratic voting, conviction voting, fund streaming, delegated voting, to name a few. So let's look at the next part of the process. How does the money get into the community treasury? So this is one of the key partner roles, is to make incremental payments from the community escrow account. There's money designated for the community. They make regular payments into the community treasury. So there's essentially money is streamed in. And they do that based on real world, face-to-face interaction with the community, talking, running workshops, etc., supporting, but also real-time data from the app. So how is the community spending the existing money? Are they following the constitution? So they're there to sort of ensure that the things are going smoothly. If things start to go off track, then they can potentially hold the next tranche of payment. So incentives are aligned. And how does the community get into the community escrow? Well, it comes from the partner escrow. So bear in mind that the partner is supporting many communities typically. So in the partner escrow, they can decide which community escrow needs more money at any point in time. But again, they're doing that based on real-time information. So how does the money get into the escrow? So the funder can put money into the partner escrow, or actually they can, if they trust the partner, but they can also put money directly into the community escrow if they want to fund a specific community. But they do that with, again, real-time information back from the partner and the community. via their dashboard. Another key point is that the partner, when they move the money from the community escrow into the community treasury, that's when they can get their cut. So there's a pre-agreed per community percentage that can go towards funding the partner and keeping their lights on. So some key points about this architecture. Number one, the funder can support many partners and many communities. A partner can support many communities. A community can have many funders, and that again is really important because they become more empowered if they've got multiple funders. And a community can attract more funders as they become more empowered and less dependent on a specific funder. So think of this as a sort of social good micro-granting economic system with its own monetary token. We've called the token the NZW token, running on this blockchain infrastructure. But instead of, as opposed to our main economy, this economy can only be used for doing good. And every transaction, every business rule is fully transparent. So we move into this streaming architecture. So think of the money flowing from the left to the right. It can only flow down. It can't flow up, and it can't leak out. We can hard code the rules. Okay. Now, we have quite a problem with this system, and the problem is that we have this fundamental problem with blockchain tokens. There's this kind of incompatibility, this friction with our traditional monetary systems. And specifically, most funders and their accountants and their risk folk, they don't want to convert their hard-earned money into crazy internet funny money. And there's tax deductibility advantages of giving it to a charity, blah, blah, blah. But at the other end, the community, they can't yet use this NZW token in New World or down the corner shop. So how do we solve this friction between this blockchain-based sort of token economy and the real world? So the solution that we've been working on essentially thinks of that economy as a kind of a black box. Okay, so money goes in at one end from the funder and it pops out at the other as microgrants. So, and then we introduce the concept of a fiscal host. So this is a New Zealand established registered charity with a board and a normal bank account and all that sort of stuff. So when the funder puts money into the economy, they actually put their money into the fiscal host's bank account. When it arrives there, the fiscal host notifies the system, and then the technology creates the equivalent number of NZW tokens into the system. So they essentially their account gets topped up in this economy, and the funder can start doing stuff with that money in the economy. So there's a one-to-one mapping of money in the fiscal host bank account with money in this microeconomy. And so when the microgrant pops out at the other end, the community authorises $150 to buy the spades for the community garden. The fiscal host is automatically notified, and they pay in real money the person. So this is known as a stablecoin architecture. So we essentially have this, and everything is independently verifiable because it's on the blockchain and auditable. And this architecture has lots of advantages. The accountants, the lawyers, the board members shouldn't have a problem because it's just normal money going to a charity and being paid out. And if anything goes wrong, we just shut the system down, fix it, and then start up again. And also it has the big advantage that the partners aren't actually touching real money. They're just allocating it, and they're getting paid in real money, but they don't have to sort of deal with all the accounting and admin stuff of all that money going through. Okay. Yes, they receive that. So at scale, this sort of, as with any network or any economy, the value increases with scale. The more funders, the more partners, the more community groups, the bigger the incentive for others to join. And at scale, this starts to look more like a two-sided marketplace. On the left-hand side, we have potentially thousands, millions of community groups doing good. They could be publishing their constitutions, and then this incorruptible infrastructure, this transparent infrastructure in the middle, And then on the right, anybody with financial capital could potentially search for their theme or their geography they care about, and with 2-click fund that. And we can start to build on that architecture. But really the more exciting part is that if you think about a group of people controlling a treasury, that's in a democratic way, that's like a cooperative, that's like a mini government. So, and there's no reason why that entity could in the future start to actually own assets, the solar battery in their community or the community garden. And so we can start to get really exciting in that space. So what next for us? So we have spent the last couple of years on this part of the system, so working with communities around the world to refine and adapt the governance system. And we got funding from some amazing partners in New Zealand. More recently, this year and end of last year, we got funding from Menzies, the Ethereum Foundation, and Rod Drury to build out this other part, this economic system that I've talked about. And we've also secured a fiscal host to support us now. So there's lots of interest from traditional funders, but we now want to run a bigger, larger scale trial, and we want to do it in Wellington. Wellington we think is ideal. It's compact. It's you've got this sort of 2 degrees of separation thing going on, and there's lots of existing communities that we can tap into. We want to run about 20 or 30 community groups in this economic system, between 3 and 5 partners and between 5 and 10 funders. Measures of success, we want, perhaps over the course of 6-8 months, we want at least 250 microgrants paid out. And bear in mind that each microgrant within the system generates a story, because the community has to report back within the app. They have to take a picture or a video of the thing and show what they did with that microgrant. So we've got potentially 250 stories. We want to commission an impact study that shows positive results. We want to prove to funders a step change in efficiency. We want local international press coverage, and we also want, through that publicity, we want to generate new funding so that we can hopefully make it self-sustainable. And with that infrastructure that we evolve and build, we should be then ready to scale nationally and globally. We need around 500k, and we're sort of earmarking 60% of that to go actually out as microgrants, so to sort of create this highly efficient system, getting money out to the communities, and around 40%, 200k, to go to the partners, the Wellbeing Protocol, fiscal hosts, for the infrastructure build, support, partner training, publicity, all the other stuff that needs to go around that. So if you're interested in getting involved, please get in, please drop us a line. Thank you very much.